Hey everybody, this is Brendan Hausler with EVOQ Bike. Today we have the Olympian Scott Bowden on the podcast. And whether you know him from very early BMX days as a kid, or running, or triathlons, or mountain biking, or road cycling, this guy has done nearly everything when it comes to endurance activities. And he drops a lot of knowledge. He came straight off the beach in Girona and talks about what he calls his obsession about being fast. There's a lot to learn from this one. Scott, thank you so much for taking your time to do this with us, and wish you all the best in the coming year. Hope you guys enjoy the show. How you doing?
Yep. Yeah, well, thanks. I've actually just got back from the beach.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, went for a bit of a swim. So I'm in Girona at the moment. So yeah, getting into late November and not far off winter, but it's never too cold for a swim.
That's awesome. Did you do triathlons at one point?
Yeah, I did actually. But yeah, I did like a season when I was maybe 13, 14, and then again when I was 16.
That's amazing. So you've been an endurance athlete your entire life, basically?
Yeah, pretty. Yeah, like I've done quite a mixed bag of sports. I started in BMX, was probably the first sport I took super serious. From
What age was that?
12, I think 7, maybe.
That's
Yes.
amazing for bike handling. Huge
It
advantage.
was, yeah, and like I've never lost that. So like now, yeah, even on the road yesterday, like that where the tree roots come under the tarmac on the road sometimes and push it up, and they can create like a little double. I'll
Mm-hmm.
still jump that on my road bike or
Mm-hmm.
manual it. Any opportunity for that kind of stuff.
My buddy Rob used to we'd be riding, and I used to live in upstate New York near Canada, so it'd be snowy, icy, and he'd be all over, and it would make me nervous watching it. And I'm like, dude, you're gonna fly off that bike. He's like, not even close. And it's just
Yeah.
an extent. Bike handling is probably, if I had to rank my skills, that's at the bottom for me. So I'm always very envious when people come over from anything with handling, or these Moto GP guys who are used to going ridiculously fast. And it's just really cool to have that skill with you your whole life.
Yeah, I think it is. And then obviously I did mountain biking afterwards, but in a lot
Mm-hmm.
of ways, actually, I think BMX, the skills are maybe more transferable to the road, in the fact that you use, like, from when I started BMX, I was close. I became so used to rubbing elbows with people, um, and just became so comfortable with that, then when I started racing in bigger pelotons, it already felt like second nature, I guess. And then for the
Yeah.
mountain bike, the skills from BMX, like, I don't know, jump, like a lot of XC tracks now are starting to include some bigger jumps and berms. And like, I'd say one thing with Swiss mountain bikers, obviously as a country, I'd say they're for sure the strongest, and France maybe, but they don't. I would say that's what the part of the skill that they're not perhaps as strong in is, like, or at least in the past. Maybe now they're still good at everything, but it's something that they've worked on more, is like the jumping and that kind of thing.
Man, that's cool. So all we really need to get you to do is some cross and track racing to really like round out the gamut of on the bike activities.
Well, I have actually I had a cross bike in 2014 briefly, and I think I rode it 5 times, and one was a local race, one was the under 23 nationals, which I got, like, I think that was the second ride I did on the cross bike. Like, I rode it the day before,
What
or
place did you
maybe
come in?
twice. Second. But
Just
yeah. But
yeah, dude.
I dropped my chain with like 2 laps or 3 laps to go, and there was a lead group of 4 of us, and then
Oh no.
I caught back up in these final twisty, like, technical sections through a heap of mud. Or actually, I caught up at the start of the corners and attacked into the corners, and then because I knew that I was probably at best going to finish third in the sprint from those guys.
Okay.
And then, yeah, one of them pegged me back right on the line and got me by a wheel.
Oh my goodness. What
Yeah, and
that
then the next,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
and then the next day was like an elite national round, and the field was much bigger again. And I started on the last row because I have maybe, I don't know, 50 or 60 guys, and I didn't have any points because I'd never done one before. But from being used to racing mountain bike World Cups, I managed to get myself, I think, to the second row before the gun even went. And then by the time the gun went, I think I was by the first corner at the front, pretty
So
much.
explain that. Like you just wiggled through. People are like, "Oh, excuse me, excuse me." Like,
No, not at all. Just like everyone was so like at a mountain bike World Cup, everyone wants to be at the front and look for any way to get there. And maybe now it's harder to do. Like maybe it's more regulated, but or at least in the smaller UCI races with still big fields in Europe, sometimes if someone could, they would move up before the start even happened. Just trying to wiggle through gaps and that kind of thing. Yeah, mate. Like I don't know the exact UCI rules, and now for sure the call ups are more structured. But in this particular field, yeah, they had the call up, but then everyone's sort of spaced out nicely, and there's sort of a bit of a gap between each row.
yeah,
And you could just wiggle yourself up the barrier or something. Um, yeah,
yeah, made it happen.
yeah,
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 figure. Sometimes we tell people like, figure it out. Like
yeah,
make it.
exactly.
So we dove in real quick. We just did a podcast with Claudio Cucinato, World Tour coach, and I was so anxious to talk to him as I was to you that we never did an intro. We did the intro last. So
Okay.
for people that don't recognize your face and like, wait, who the hell is this guy that just came in second in U23 cross nats? Who is Scott Bowden? And we're super pumped to have you here, by the way.
Thanks. I am 26. I was first in cycling, taking it properly serious, I guess, a mountain biker. So I did from 2013 as a last year junior, I started racing in Europe, like World Cups and stuff. And then till third year under 23, so 2016. Yeah, I was racing just on almost exclusively on the mountain bike, and then I went to the 2016 Rio Olympics for cross country mountain biking, and actually did the road race too, because the dynamics of cycling as all encompassing disciplines at the Olympics, countries they qualify a certain amount of positions, say 30, and Australia preferenced the track as their, I guess, most controlled environment to guarantee medals. So they took an extra track rider, I think, for maybe the team's pursuit, which was one less rider they could take in other disciplines. So they took one less road rider, and that meant that they then needed someone to fill in a support domestique type role. And yeah, I did that. So I was selected only for the mountain bike, but I got to do the road race too. And then following that, yeah, I raced on various iterations of the one continental team. It was called ISO Sports Swiss Wellness, Benelong Swiss Wellness, and then the last 2 years I was on at Bridge Lane, which is like the top Australian continental team. So yeah, raced in pretty much every continent with them. And then this year I'm racing with a DN1 French team.
So do you consider yourself, with such a rich history of cycling already at the young age of 26, if someone quickly asks you, oh, you rode a mountain biker?
100% road, 100%
Oh,
road now.
wow.
Like, yeah,
Full on.
Yeah, like I don't own a mountain bike at the moment. I did ride a mountain bike in sort of the last week of my off-season break. I went across to Switzerland to catch up with a mate that I lived with when I was mountain biking. and he's a professional mountain biker exclusively. And we went to Finale, and I borrowed one of his old bikes, and we went trail riding. But the first couple of days there's no way I could call myself a mountain biker, that's for sure. But by the end, the speed and the flow started to come back. So I'm sure, it would take a while, I think, but and it's hard to know for sure, but I think I could maybe get back to at least an okay level. I don't know about World Cup level. That would probably take some time, because I also don't know exactly what the level is there now.
Yeah, these Swiss riders are like, "Hey man, why are you talking trash about our bumping and rubbing? Like we're with it these days."
Yeah.
So this is actually we don't get many athletes that we get to watch that come from this mountain biking to road cycling. Obviously Sagan, Cadel Evans, there's big names that did it. But when we look down, and people that we more work with obviously are not at your level, and amateurs that kind of want to do everything, I'm really curious. You've already sort of mentioned some skills that came from BMX and mountain biking that you can apply to road. You're now 100% road. If you have an athlete, because you coach athletes, don't you?
Only 4. So
okay. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I've just started coaching a little bit more, on the side, and it's something, I really enjoy.
So what do you tell someone that wants to do both? And maybe, so this is a huge question, obviously, because I'd be curious your experience, but then how do you coach them? And let's say it is more, and we're on different calendars, so I don't want to get the months. So our summer is like, May, June, July, August. So say they want to go do that, and they're like, well, I'm kind of doing both. Or maybe some will say, I'm doing road May and June, and then I want to sort of transition to July, August. Do you see them as the same? And because obviously there's aerobic fitness, there's a ton of overlap. So maybe we even focus more on the differences. It's a huge question, so I almost don't even know how to ask it. But when I was just reading more of your history, I'm like, wow, this guy has to have some incredible insights into multi-discipline cyclists. I think you're like the best person to ask this because you've done nearly everything. Let's open that can of worms. And I'm curious, just when I ask you that, what comes to mind?
I think, first of all, when I was mountain biking, I did race on the road a little bit. Okay. Particularly locally, a little bit domestically within Australia, but my focus was always 100% mountain biking.
Okay.
And then when I switched to the road, I did plan in the first year to do some mountain biking to try and go to the Commonwealth Games, but then I got injured. And then by the time I came back, I was literally just focusing on the road.
Okay.
So I never juggled the two that much, but it's something that I often think of. Like now you're seeing more guys like Van der Poel, Tom Pidcock, and then next year, Victor Koretsky, one of the top French guys, and Milan Varda, one of the top Dutch guys. They're going to B&B, a Pro Conti team, and Jumbo Visma, respectively. So there's more guys that will be doing on like World Tour or Pro Conti road teams, also racing mountain bike World Cups. And actually another young Swiss guy that will be on Bike Exchange who will still be doing World Cups on the mountain bike. Okay. So it is something I think of, like, how would I, if I was to go back to mountain biking, how would I balance that? And I think maybe in some ways, if it was like an amateur cyclist, it would be easier, because typically their road races aren't much longer than 3 hours, and a typical cross-country race is around an hour and a half. So like you say, the thing that stays consistent is the aerobic side of things. You, regardless of really how long your race is, you're always maintaining some level of aerobic work. That's sort of like, I guess, the bread and butter of all cycling training. And when you're not racing like week-long tours as amateur cyclists, it's not so common. It means perhaps your overall, at least consistent volume, doesn't need to be so high. So I don't think, then it more, I would say, comes down to balancing the time that you spend on the mountain bike. Because the skill side is so important. And also even small things, like one that I noticed most going back to riding a mountain bike the other week is like actually becoming more familiar with getting used to the dropper and being efficient using a dropper post. And even you've got the head angle on the bike is a lot different. So like the handling feels way different. The tires and the rims are much wider. Like the crank, actually the crank length. So I run 172.5 length cranks on the road, but they never used to make 172.5 on the mountain bike. It was 170 or 175, which I never noticed a huge amount, but I think the biggest thing is the Q factor. It's wider on the mountain bike, and I think that you can notice. And then different pedals. So if you're not riding it consistently, I think it can take a while to get used to all of that again. And I think if you want to be good at both, you need to at least be spending some time consistently on both. But I feel like 1-2 times a week on the mountain bike, on the trails is quite sufficient.
Did you choose the 170 or 175 cranks for the mountain bike?
175.
Okay. Is that because of the higher torque or just felt better?
It's something I never played around with, or something that I thought about too much. I think it happened initially by default because I rode a medium bike and they typically always came with 175 cranks. So that's just what I went with.
Got it. Yeah, it's interesting because the mountain bike does, I always try to ask myself, because me not mountain biking, that's usually one of the first things. I'm pretty vocal about the fact that I don't mountain bike because I don't want somebody to come to me and think I'm like ripping trails all the time. So I'll be like, hey, just FYI, I don't ride in the dirt at all. I'm like, no, it's cool. I'm good with skills. I need watts. I'm like, okay, cool. But it becomes that thing when I ask myself, what is really this person's limiter? I was talking to one guy, he's getting stronger, but he's just continually losing time because he's not good on the trails. I'm like, you need to get off the road bike. The watts matter. Don't get me wrong. But if you're riding with similar skilled level people and you can't keep up on the trail, you need to be on the trail. And we did a podcast with one of my old coaches he's actually one of those crazy downhill guys. And he had a guy come out to Boulder and he's like, man, I rode these trails with him that I thought I knew. And his skill level made me rethink like all my lines and really go back to basics, like smooth is fast. And so it's always not being a mountain biker, talking to a mountain biker, trying to break down, is it watts? Is it skills? And where is it skill? Like what skills is it that you need to work on? So it's just always interesting to hear people that have that experience. So 1-2 times on the trail, and then you more thinking, do the interval work, the aerobic endurance rides on the road bike, the other, 3 to 5 times that they're riding during the week. Is that about a fair estimate?
Yeah, for sure. And I would say, when I was mountain biking, I did have power on both bikes, but I actually I think maybe because I was younger, I don't know, but I never really looked at it all that much. I would always almost do it off perceived effort a lot of the time. And 100% on the mountain bike, I definitely did. Because when I was doing I did often do intervals actually on the mountain bike. And even I would do 20-minute tempos on the mountain bike. But I think for me, it was not so much about power. It was riding 20 minutes. It was in a lot of ways, yes, there's the physical component, but I think it was actually doing focus blocks of trying to ride fast and efficient and making, really just practicing being as efficient as possible, or also picking a climb and doing the max or really high end like VO2 type effort and then finishing it and dropping straight into a single track descent. So not only are you practicing you're training the engine with the climbing component. I was actually I might just do it on a fire trail to the top of the climb, but then it would be the descent. Again, you're red lined at the top, and then you're turning straight into a descent and trying to do I'd often do it into actually the downhill track. And I would be on my hardtail without a dropper post at the time. And then you're really on the limit, trying not to make mistakes, keep it smooth, go as fast as you can.
That is a perfect example of everything that counts can't be counted. WKO can't tell you can't prescribe that. And it's one thing, my coach Tom is in the UK and he's a very technical guy, but a lot of the conversations we've had have been removing away from the algorithms and talking to me as the athlete. It's helped make me a much better coach for sure. Just, it's so easy to want to get sucked into the metrics and you can't, there's no way to put a number on that, but that's the real life scenario. That's amazing to hear you say that. I love that. You made the comment when you were young. We're going to jump around a little bit. So let's go back to if you're riding at 7, what do you like as a kid? So you're doing BMX. Do you have siblings? What's kind of your endurance, come up? You mentioned under 23 until 2016. Maybe take us up until there. Were you into other sports? What do you have?
Yeah, I was a juggle between BMX and soccer. Okay. And I was really into soccer or football, depending on where you're from.
Yeah.
And that's what all my schoolmates did. And we were mad about it at school. Like I was always super active. Like go to school early to play soccer for 30 minutes, then go, into classes, recess, play soccer again, or maybe cricket, depending on the time of the year, or Aussie rules like AFL football.
Okay.
But typically, it was soccer. And then like quite a few of us started to make the local regional team, and at times that clashed with BMX. But
and are you thinking, hey, I want to be an athlete when I grow up? Or you thinking about you want to be a doctor? Where's your head at?
No, actually, I wasn't competitive until I think this is actually still super young. But one day at school cross country, one year I just was running with the front group, and some of them were my friends, and just chatting away and not really taking it too serious. I think that was grade 3. So I would have been 9 at the time. And then the next year something clicked. I don't know. And I was like, I want to win. And then the next year, maybe I went for a few runs with my dad, 3K runs. He would often run after work and I would go along with him. Nothing serious. But then this year, when I was 9, I decided I wanted to win, and then I did.
This seems to be a theme in your life. I love it.
Yeah. And then BMX also, when I started, I wasn't that good at all. I was maybe second last or third last every race. And then I saw the good guys and I was like, that's what I want to be. Mm-hmm. And then gave it time. And then I was one of those guys, and then I was beating them. And then I would go to the national champs a couple times and some other sort of events on mainland Australia, because I'm from Tasmania, the island down the bottom. Then though, as I got to maybe 12 or 11, running then started to be the focus, cross country running and athletics, and made the state teams for that and went to the national championships. But whenever I would go to the national championships, I was never, certainly not a contender for the win or medals or even top 10 or anything like that.
Are you training at this point, or are you just hey, I'm going to go run with my buds?
I think, I don't know how old I was. For BMX, I spent a lot of time at the track because it was close to my house. I would go down there by myself after school. Mm-hmm. If there were mates there, then great. But I would just go there, and I would often ride, with guys that were almost twice my age. Mm-hmm. And they would be pushing me to do more than what I thought I could. And running, I think I started training with a group when I was maybe 12, but not super serious, not high volume at all, and still not a training program. I would just go 1 or 2 days a week to the track. Then I would run by myself, but now I look back on it, it's no wonder I got all these niggling injuries, because in my mind, I would never run less than 4-minute Ks. I would go out after school, and if I was running, I might only run for 3K or 4 or 8K, or maybe the longest I would do back then was 10. But in my mind, it was not worth running at all if I was going to run more than 4-minute Ks, which now I know more about running and training. That's just stupid. Like the fastest guys in the world do their like long runs far slower than that. But yeah, I think I just like doing stuff.
Yeah.
Like whatever it was, I really enjoyed it. And then when I was 13, I got a road bike in mind, like to do triathlons. And I'd just gone to high school then in Australia. So yeah, I was 13. That's when we start high school, 13 to 16. And the school I went to, one of the teachers found out I had a road bike, and then he sort of got me into some road races. And like the first one I did, there was 2 of us there. And I got dropped pretty soon in, and it was like freezing cold, middle of Tassie winter. I had like Nixon jersey because that was all the kit I had. It was Sonia Devau kit, which is like a team full of like dopers, and I was completely oblivious, like rocking this kit. My road bike actually was 650B with like Shimano Sora, like heavy alloy bike with like an Uskadi paint job on it, which I didn't have any clue of at the time. But I think that from there, I didn't do that much when I was 13. And then I think it was when I got like a new bike after that, when I was 14, I started doing more long rides. No coach for triathlon. I'd swim with a group, run with mates or by myself, and ride with mates. When it was the school holidays, like my training was generally just like, if I had time or on the weekends, I would ride as long as I could somewhere I hadn't been before with a group of mates. We would attack each other at the end, come home super hunger flat, because we had no idea about nutrition or eating on the bike. It'd be like maybe the odd muesli bar or banana here and there, and that was about it. But it wasn't until I was sort of 16 going on 17 that I started going to mountain bike national rounds, because my school actually had a mountain bike course, like a 7-kilometer course on campus at the school. So that's awesome. How I got into mountain biking, and did my first race was like a 24-hour 4-man team with schoolmates, and we won. And then that sort of got the mountain bike bug. Yeah.
That's so cool. I played volleyball with a kid who later, when I was in college, after college, realized that he was a category 1 racer, and I didn't even know bike racing really existed. Like I can't even remember the first time I heard of the Tour de France, and I was like, oh, people were like racing bikes, cool. And so it's just so cool to hear. I mean, when I think back, like what if I was riding when I was 7? It's I hope that it becomes more popular in the US culture at some point. There's definitely little pockets where they have big high school programs, but yeah, we definitely did not have any mountain bike course, mountain bike team, anything. So that's incredible. You said something that sticks out that I think is applicable for everybody to hear, do more than what you think you can when those guys were pushing you. I think that's one thing I try to just tell other athletes. Where you are right now is totally not where you're going. And that's the beauty of this endurance game, but you just got to give it a little bit of time. And do you still feel like, I mean, you're still young in this, do you keep sort of surprising yourself with what you can accomplish? And does that have you sort of resetting goals? Like, oh, maybe I thought I'd be a pro. Well, shoot, maybe I might be a really good man. Maybe I should be a world champion. Like, how does that play out at your level?
Yeah, I think, well, for me, like I'll stop the moment that I'm not moving forward, and I don't need to be moving forward in anyone else's eyes. It's just about like, as long as I feel like I'm progressing. And if I'm not, like my progression hasn't been on paper, at least what I would have liked it to have been in terms of progressing to a higher level on a high level road team. And there's maybe a lot of reasons why that has happened, largely like due to setbacks, like I don't know, glandular fever and I guess like COVID and knee injury the first year on the road and things like that. But I mean, it sucks, but like I think I'm lucky because it's taught me how much I like just cycling as a sport, how much I like riding my bike, and I think it's taught me to become more resilient and cope during those hard times. And I think actually get the best out of myself when things are good. So, but yeah, still, like, even now I would still try and surround myself with people that are better than me to keep raising the ceiling. And yeah, for sure, like, I don't know, an example, like what I did last summer would have been more in some area than what I would have done the year before. Or if I'd done the same the year before, maybe I couldn't have benefited from it. Like, it would have just been too much.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, like last summer, for example, this time last year, actually, I wasn't really riding my bike in November. I looked back just recently at what I was doing this time last year, and I rode my mountain bike a bit when I was having a little bit of a break late last year, before I started to build up for the Aussie summer. And not a big break because we hadn't raced because of COVID, and I missed the full start of the year with glandular fever. And then before COVID kicked off, and then so I was having a little break, did a little bit of mountain biking. My seat slipped without knowing, and I got a knee injury. And I ignored it at first because I thought, oh, it's a niggle, no problem, and then flared up. It got better and it was all fine, like very easily treatable. But I missed a bit of time till the inflammation settled, and yeah, had to start with like 2 times 10 minutes on the trainer a day, then 20, then 30, and build up, and plus just complete rest. And then I think in November, my training was like Monday to Friday, so 5 gym sessions a week for the month of November. I'd already been in the gym for the majority, for maybe 3 or 4 months at least before that, 2 to 3 times a week, because I wasn't traveling, racing or anything. So I was really focusing on a solid strength block. So I had the base to do that much load in the gym. And it was targeted, like lifting as heavy as I could, at least on 3 of those days. And then swimming, I was trying to do some aerobic work, and a lot of it was just with the pool boy, so no kicking, at least in the beginning. And then I think my first week of training was like on the bike, proper week, was maybe the week before or of Christmas. And it was not really any stress, because when I had the knee injury, I decided, okay, I'm just building up for the European season. I'm going to skip the Aussie Nationals, even though it's a month later than normal. It was, I think, the first or second weekend of February. And then 2 weeks out, I actually decided to do it, because I watched like the watered down, like domestic version of Tour Down Under was on TV, and I watched that and had massive FOMO. And then 2 weeks out from Nationals, I thought, oh, you know what? Like, I'm in Oz. Like, I watched it. I couldn't even stay awake to watch it the year before because I had glandular fever and I was just so tired. So I was like, no, I'll at least go along. Like, I want to race. It will be fun. No pressure on the result. And then I went and finished third in a photo finish. So, and my training was not textbook. I didn't have, like the week of, say, Christmas, I started riding. November, I wasn't really even on the bike. I was doing work. Like, I think 1 week I swam close to 40 kilometers. And then when I got back on the bike, I think I did like 18 hours, 20 hours, and then basically just did 4 30-hour weeks. And yeah, I was literally just riding my bike. I didn't feel like I was training. It was like training for free because it was fun. Like, I would ride up to the lakes, like the Highlands in Tassie, because my dad was up there like trout fishing, camp the night, and then ride back home. And like maybe I'd hit lap on a couple of the climbs because they were cool climbs I'd never done before. And I don't know, it's just fun going a bit fast. And then I was training a lot. I'm from the south of Tasmania in Hobart, and Richie Port lives in Launceston, which is it's about a 2-hour drive. And I have family up there and often go up there to stay with them in the summer. So I was training quite a lot with him. And yeah, a lot of the time the riding we were doing was, I guess, like, yeah, quite unstructured. Like, we would do some there's just one loop pretty much that he does on repeat when he's at home in the Aussie summer. And yeah, we would just do that more or less on repeat. And as we got fitter, we would start doing like, first it would be the like 1 45-minute chop off home. Then as we got fitter, it'd be like include a 45-minute chop before that. Or like, and then maybe he would do some efforts of his own on the 2 main climbs, and then maybe some more guys would come out some days, or sometimes it would just be us two, and we'd start chopping off from one point, and then like, 2 hours later, we're still chopping off, just doing like 1-minute turns or something. And then like, I don't know, one weekend after a few days with him, I went home after the ride because I had a wedding, went to the wedding, went home, and then woke up the next morning and rode back to Launceston because I couldn't be bothered driving back up there. And that was like maybe a bit over 6 or 7 hours. And then the next did another 2 days with him and then rode back home again. So it was like, it was a lot of volume with a lot of unstructured intensity, but it was what I like riding. Like it wasn't, there was a lot of work being put in, but it didn't feel like it.
Right.
Yeah.
When you say chopping off, is that just riding hard, medium? What does that term mean?
Yeah. It could
full gas?
mean like, no, I wouldn't say full gas. Like, yeah, I mean, sometimes we were doing it for like 2.5 hours. So, but as you get fitter, the intensity you can sustain for that long gets higher.
Okay.
So like in the beginning, it might just be like when you're on the front, you're doing around 250 watts. But then by the end, it might be more like 350 or something.
Okay.
And then maybe like someone there decides they want to go for a Strava for a bit of fun. So then maybe whoever's there on the day rally to like help that person get it or something. But usually like one day Richie wanted to go for his best time up the sidling, this climb on the loop. But I think it was this day it was maybe just him and I, or maybe this was the day I went for it. I can't remember, but we swapped off for like 45 minutes or an hour, maybe an hour before we did the effort. Like into the base of the climb. And then he started going, sort of pacing my effort. And yeah, so.
Did you get the KOM?
I got second, but it was too Richie. So.
Okay, fair enough.
So, yeah.
I think I've heard of this Richie guy, so he sounds pretty fast.
Yeah. Like the best thing for me for that, it was like, it was really good to spend that time training with someone at that level because, I felt like that took me up another level. Yeah, like there's always room to get better.
Oh,
and I think
100%.
like maybe he's towards the end of his career now, but I feel like in a lot of areas he's still, I mean, like, the day after I did that time, he went quicker again. And he's been doing that loop like his whole career. So I think there's always room for improvement.
There's always room for improvement. And I think the thing that catches people is that it's not this just linear progression. It's that stair step. And when I was in it at one point and my friend was like, "You done trying to get better?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm kind of where I'm at." And then we both looked at each other. I was like, "That was the dumbest thing I've ever said." And that just conversation really remotivated me. And that was 6 years ago, maybe. I can't remember now, but yeah, it's funny to hear you talk about the unstructured training and, training RPE on the mountain bike. So you're definitely into that, the athlete feeling the training and going with how the body's feeling and learning when to push, when to pull back. It's so much more than just the numbers. I think that is sometimes that's lost because we're getting so much more technology to help us with numbers, but it's just not there. Or it's not as complete as being one with the bike and the training.
I think exactly. Like, don't get me wrong. I still very much look, I guess, at the numbers, like a large number of numbers. But I think I think in some ways you need like the maturity as a cycler in cycling to, if you're going to look at a heap of numbers, you need to not get caught up in them, or you need to see them for what they are. Like, I think the main focus is just like, if someone's getting into it, is to keep it like really simple. Like, first of all, just obsess about being fast. Like, just focusing on riding your bike faster, whether that's on the mountain bike and improving like your skills and efficiency, or whether it's on the road, like thinking about being fast. Like, I don't know, in all areas, like regardless of what type, even if you think you're a climber or whatever, you pigeonhole yourself to a particular type of rider, I think. Yeah, and unless you're on like one of the biggest teams in the world and you're expected to get results at a type of race, then like it doesn't matter what you are. Like, just be a bike racer. Like, if you're a handy climber, there's no reason you can't do sprints in training, or like practice riding, in an aero position on your road bike for when to be more efficient or whatever. Yeah.
Well, especially because if you're at an event and it's one, I don't know if I've actually ever verbalized this, but in thinking of going fast and being fast, if you're in a race and maybe you're attacking off the front, or you're in a small group, and if you're thinking, holy crap, I'm going fast, or we're going fast, then, hey, we've got a chance to stay away. You need to know, do you feel fast? Sometimes you attack and you don't have that extra overdrive that day. And it's like, damn, I'm not really that fast right now. I need to save these matches. And it just helps you understand where you are in the group that day. And every day is not going to be the same. Every event's not going to be the same. The weather's not always going to be like, and just understanding how you are at that point in time, is that self-awareness, I guess, is really important to getting results and to doing your best each event.
That's true. But I also don't think you have to feel good to get a good result. Like, a lot of the times I've had my best results, I've felt terrible from the start. Like,
really?
Like at Road Nationals, I felt terrible pretty much the whole race.
So what are you thinking then? Are you just, tell me about that.
It's just, I'm like, oh, well, I don't feel good at the moment. Like, the race is 5 hours. It doesn't matter how I feel in the first hour. Like, just, it's going to stop me wasting unnecessary energy trying to close things I don't need to. And just turn it into a positive, like, of, oh, well, that can occupy my mind for the first part of the race. Like, yeah, I don't feel great. Like, that's okay, as long as I know that I've done the work. So, like, I shouldn't get dropped at a time, like, I just need to be good at, maybe it changes the way how you approach the race.
Yeah.
But like, road races can be won so many different ways. So like, you're never really out of it until it's the last minute. I mean, it depends. Like, but yeah, I think if you're just waiting for that day that you have magic legs and you can't feel the chain, well, I mean, those days only come around so often. So right. I think you just have to get used to.
That's
used to not feeling great.
Yeah, that's very. That's a really interesting point that you make. And now I'm thinking Stephen Bassett from Raleigh was on here, and he was like, people talk about these magical days where like everything aligned. He's like, no, when you win, it's because only 25% of your day went wrong, and the other guys had like 35% went wrong. He's like, there's so many variables. It's never perfect. Like, I made every right move, and my nutrition was perfect. Blah, blah, blah. So you say it in a different way, but that's actually a really good thing to hear. I haven't heard that since him. I like that. And you said it, make it positive.
Like, actually something else from that race was, I was on a pretty new bike, and I don't know how, because I checked it, but the two stem bolts at the, like at the fork sort of, had come loose. So
on the faceplate?
Yeah. No, not on the faceplate. The other two bolts back behind.
Okay. On the steer tube. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were coming loose, and it was pretty much all left-hand turns on the Road National circuit for Australia. So when I'd turn, the corner, I guess the force, my bars kept twisting more and more.
God.
And at first I was like, no problem. Like, actually, again, oh, well, it gives me something to focus on. But the race, it's not really a race. The race never stopped. Like, it was the fastest they'd completed that course. Yeah, every time up the climb, it was firm, and it's not a course that's really that conducive to going back to the car, because there's not a lot of long straights. There's a bit of a like downhill into a tight corner a lot like corners through a university, that kind of thing. And actually, I was an individual. I didn't have anyone in a team car other than my old team who would have supported me, but I think they were further back in the convoy. So I think I went to the back of the bunch when I finally decided I need to fix this, because it got so bad that I thought, if I do happen to get to the front of the race, if I happen to get to the finish in the front, I don't know if I'll be able to sprint like this. And if it gets any worse, I won't be able to ride. So I went to the back of the bunch, it was a reduced group, not many guys left, put my hand up, SRAM neutral, motorbike came up to me, and I just asked for a multi-tool, and they gave it to me, and I just tightened it in the position that it was. Like on the go. And so like there's actually a video of the last time up the climb of me responding to an attack, and like I'm riding a big gear and it just looks horrible, but like you can't really, maybe you can see, I don't know, but it was partly because my handlebars were twisted.
That's so
that like
weird.
I just looked so bad on the bike. But yeah, I think and like another race I can think of something like that was Tour of Taiwan, where my Di2 cables, I think when the bike was built, they didn't put a kink in the cable. So whenever I hit a speed bump or like any kind of bump, the cable would pop out and I wouldn't have gears. And it happened on the Queen stage, and there was a climb quite early, and I'd stopped twice, and the mechanic had pushed it back in, and then it hit another bump, and then had to do the first KOM with just the front two chain rings. And thankfully, I think I was in an okay gear on the back that I could make it work. Like I was either spinning a bit much or grinding a bit much. And it was standard, like the breakaways trying to go. And then over the top, it was like really technical, quite narrow roads, super fast. And in the end, I just decided I have to change bikes. So I hopped on the spare bike and then just committed to that to the rest of the stage. I think it had like deeper, heavier wheels, and it had Ultegra and not Dura-Ace. But in the end, I was like, oh, well, I'll save energy with the deeper wheels, like before the 10K climb. And like the climb's pretty quick. I'd done it the year before. And yeah, and then I got again, like, fourth in a reduced bunch sprint in a photo finish. So like, yeah, just because things happen as well. Like, okay, I didn't win on either of those days, but like they weren't bad days, and those things happening didn't prevent me from having a chance at winning. So yeah,
making do with what you had and figuring it out on the go.
Yeah,
literally.
exactly.
So I'm really curious. What do you think is a small thing that's had a big impact on your success as a cyclist?
I think like at least in recent like times, fueling like on the bike in races, and actually maybe even getting a better understanding of like how much to eat and when. Like at times, maybe overall how much I was eating might have been okay, but like I might have gone periods where I like just massively underfueled and then like made up for it later, or
going on that a little bit. Like, when would you think you were underfueling? What was the scenario?
Yeah, like I don't know, maybe not eating a particularly big, not understanding how much I would burn on say a 5-hour ride, doing a 5-hour ride, eating like 1 or 2 bars, getting through the ride okay, maybe eating just like a normal lunch when I got home, but then being ravenously hungry and like loading up on like cereal or something before I went to bed. And I think that it just creates more unnecessary stress on your body. I think once you realize, actually, no, if you're training properly, you're burning a lot of energy. And also the more you fuel that, the higher your output can be. And I think, yeah, if you're trying, like, obviously weight is super important in a lot of aspects of cycling, but like power's more important, and being healthy is more important, and creating small deficits over a period of time anyway is a far more sustainable and healthy way that's conducive to actually producing a good performance when it matters, rather than just trying to like dump a heap of weight quickly to be at that goal weight. Like, the goal weight's only good if you can get there healthy, feeling how you were before you started trying to lose it. So yeah, I think, and then like, yeah, just fueling on the bike. Like, I mean, road cycling, no one cares so much what your peak powers can do. That's not what wins your race. It's like, what percentage of your peak power can you do after like 2.5, 3, 4, 5,000 kilojoules, like at the end of 4 or 5 hours. That's sort of what matters. And if you're not fueling well, yeah, maybe it's still possible to do that, but like, it's certainly not going to be possible to do that like week in, week out, or throughout the duration of a season.
It's awesome. I always use it's a little bit of a hyperbole of an example, but like you get a guy who has a huge sprint, massive, hey man, I can do 1,500 watts. I'm an amateur. I can't win any of these races. It's like, well, man, at the end of the 2.5-hour race, you're totally exhausted. You have no aerobic fitness. You don't have that sprint. That sprint that you're doing 20 minutes in fresh doesn't count for what you're trying to do. So yeah, we had a guy, Cody Stevenson, just even asking a guy from Training Peaks, how do we have athletes understand repeatability and that ability of doing like 95% of a max later? It's hard to put a metric on it. And so it comes back to the conversation earlier today of, you can't always just go by these metrics that we have. There's these other things you need to more think about. And I think even asking yourself, how do you feel at the end of 3 hours? You can look at the numbers that you're used to seeing. Do you have anywhere near close to that? Or are you just shattered? And then kind of reinvent your wheel that way. So to hear you say that is, I think, really valuable for people to hear. What do you think was, and maybe across, let's say either mountain biking or road racing, what do you think was one of your main limiters, and how did you go about working on that?
I think when I was younger, I was so driven. That hasn't changed, but I was so driven to be better and the best that I could, that like every day, like I felt like what I did this day, like today, it would make me better tomorrow. But like, yeah, the changes don't happen overnight. It's more about consistency. And I would be trying to just do the maximum. I'd be coming home shattered all the time, pushing. I don't know, maybe I could have just taken a day off here, but instead I wouldn't. I'd still try and push through it. And rather than thinking about the long term, and like, for sure, the more you do that, the higher your tolerance is for any workload. But if you want to be good for that particular time, it's not so much the best approach. So I think just seeing things, yeah, maybe a bit more long-term perspective, that's probably been one big thing, I guess, that I've come to realize, I suppose.
I love that. We're going to actually, before we post your podcast, Andy, one of our newest coaches, he said the exact same thing of having too much motivation where it gets you into trouble, where you're like, I just got to do more. I'm ready. Let's do more. And he's like, oh, shoot, it was too much, or it was the wrong time. And so I think a lot of us, it's the endurance sports attracts a certain personality. And so I think a lot of athletes will be able to resonate with your thoughts on that. What's
Yeah.
so, and then I guess the last training question that I have, I know this hour has gone by super fast. Do you cross train or lift at all? And do you do that throughout the year, or is that just a specific portion of the year? And then I guess the follow-up was, is it more mountain bike or road specific?
I would, yeah, since like 2015, I would do periods in the gym, particularly when I'm at home, and
Mm-hmm.
through like the local, like the State Institute of the Tasmanian Institute of Sport. So through them, I had access to a good S&C coach and would do targeted periods in the gym. Sometimes it was just more for like maintenance and like core
Okay.
stability, injury prevention, general health and well-being, kind of like bone density, I guess, all those kind of things. But like last year, where there was such a long period without racing due to COVID, then it became about strength and trying to get stronger. If I put on a bit of muscle or weight at that time, it was not a non-issue. It was a non. What I did on the bike factored in the gym because I had the luxury of not. I could have the trade-off in performance on the bike for a little bit. If I went out and I was a bit shattered from the gym, it was not an issue, and I didn't have to rush things. So I've certainly done a lot of time over the years in the gym for sure. And then
What's your favorite
cross.
routine? What's your favorite, like, you had to go in, you had time for 4 lifts, and granted this might change, but what do you really like doing in the gym?
I would say I would probably, yeah, like I would start with like maybe it depends. The more I do it, the more I progress what I include. Like at the moment, if I went to the gym having not been for a while, my warm up would probably include 3 or max 4, like some sort of activation, general movement things, a few different movement patterns. And then the lifts I would do would be like 3 sets of probably 10 in the beginning, trap bar deadlifts, just to get used to the movement. And again, nothing crazy with the weight at all. And
Mm-hmm.
as I spent more time in, the reps would go down and the weight would go up. And then maybe it would become 4 sets as well. So, but for me, I would say that movement pattern of a trap bar deadlift is one that I'm most comfortable with. So it's one that I can most get, I guess, the most strength gains out of. Whereas with squats, I do like doing them and it's something I'd like to get better at. But I've always felt that range of movement doesn't come quite so naturally to me. Um, and then I do really like straight leg, or single leg deadlifts. But man, if you haven't done them for a while, or even if you skip like a week, your hamstrings just get
Yeah,
incredibly sore. So I like doing them once I've been doing them for a while, but I hate starting doing them again.
that's fair.
And then I always try and include at least one single leg exercise. Like this varies, but like, yeah, when I was doing them a lot in the gym, a lot, I would have a weight vest on. I can't remember with how much weight, and then also holding one dumbbell to my chest as well. And my rear foot would be elevated on.
Mm.
Usually, I would actually do it on a squat rack with a really tough band across between the squat rack and have my foot elevated on that. Um, Maybe then because of that, you have to engage your core a bit more. And also, actually, I found it more comfortable than having it up on,
I don't
yeah,
like it on
even
a
the
bench.
specific. No, the
Yeah.
bench is terrible. You can get a specific thing for single leg squats, but
Okay.
even that I didn't like the feeling of. Plus, it
On
was
the top
nice
of your
having a
foot,
bit
you're
of,
talking about. On
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Somebody looked at me when I said that to somebody and looked at me like I had 5 heads, and I was like, "Am I doing this wrong?" I'm like, "This that does not feel good to me." And so I
No,
still
no.
like wiggle around with it. I'm like, it looks awkward, but I'll have to consider that. Though that's tough, man, with a weight
Yeah.
vest and a. I mean, you're probably stronger than I am, but it's. I'm trying to think of what I just did a couple days ago. I thought I could do 60 pounds, and I was doing 10 reps, and by like 8, I was like, I'm pushing too hard. This is not. I'm like really trying. This is not the point of the exercise. I think I went down to 220s, but man, I need to get
Yeah.
stronger. You're like,
Yeah. I
come
mean,
on.
I was, yeah, like that was last year when I was in the gym a lot. And I have a history of doing like, yeah, I guess that particular exercise and that kind of thing. Like I was genuinely trying to get stronger and increasing what I could do, how much I could lift.
Have you
Yeah,
ever
week in, week out.
done have you ever done goblet squats? And the only reason I ask is I started doing those on a lighter day away from normal squats with a barbell, and it I don't know what it was. My form got so much better from that. And I don't know if it was the lighter weight was helping me work, like just make the neural connection or something. My buddy was with me. He's like, "Man, have you been working on your form?" I'm like, "No, but it's weird that you say that. I've been doing random goblet squats, and I was going lower than normally. Like I was going all the way down. And there was something in there, like something clicked in my body. And I even notice it when I do squats. Now I'm like, wow, it looks so much more like I'm doing it correctly. Maybe it's just experience, but if it feels weird, maybe that's something to mess around with.
Goblet squats, I think maybe I would do them with even no weight in
Okay.
a warm
Yeah.
up as like opening up the range of movement or something. I don't think I've ever done them
Actually,
weighted. I don't think.
maybe that's what it did for me. Man,
Yeah.
okay, last question for you. I appreciate you hanging around for an hour here. What
No, no problem.
We have a lot of younger cyclists that tune in, and especially when they see your name, it's a tough career to get into. You have to be an amazing athlete, obviously, but maybe there's a pearl out there, a little tip of wisdom. What do you think it takes in 2022 to become a pro cyclist?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're younger and you're aspiring to get there, if you're motivated and driven, then like things only compound. Like your passion for it, you do it more. The more you practice it, you get better. But I'd say the biggest thing is trying to surround yourself with people that are better than you and pushing to get to their standard. And I think the more you surround yourself with people than with you better, like you just keep raising your own ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be so much worried on, yeah, like particularly now what power number this guy does and he's the same age or that kind of thing. Like just focus on you and focus on getting yourself better, particularly if they're a younger athlete. Everyone's development is different. Like I didn't even grow till I was sort of, yeah, I didn't even start growing really properly till I was maybe 18.
Wow.
So yeah, everyone's development's different, and but I think the overriding thing, like the reason I'm still writing, I'm not where I want to be now, but I'm still writing because I've realized how much I genuinely enjoy it, and yeah, that hunger to get better or that desire, it sort of, it hasn't dampened in any way. So I think you're going to be okay if you really enjoy it. And yeah, there's times, of course, to be regimented, but I think you can't undervalue the enjoyment factor, because when you enjoy something, you're able to knuckle down more anyway and do things properly.
When you love the dirt, when you love the hard work, that's when you're going to find the most success along the journey. It's not just you got to love the riding, not just the accolades from coming in first. And
Yeah.
that's a phenomenal ending point, because it is tougher, especially with the younger generation of Strava. And I've even talked to, when we're racing around locally, I'll talk to someone like, well, dude, I see you on Strava. I can't do those watts. I'm like, those watts? I'm like, number one, I'm 81 kgs. Ignore the watts, but focus on your watts and focus on when you're going to
Yeah.
implement those watts in the race. Don't look at what I'm doing on Tuesday morning. That has nothing to do with Saturday.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, I do think Strava's good for that, because it does mean that young kids can see the level and they realize that, okay, it's humanly possible to go this quick up their local climb because that's what the best guy in the area's done,
that's a
or
good
or
point.
whatever. But it depends though also, because they could be comparing their effort on a climb thinking it's no way I could do this, but they don't know that a race has gone up there and they've done that time in the peloton with race wheels in and a tailwind or something. So you also can't get disheartened by it. But
those are always funny ones when you full gas something. You're like, wow, 2 minutes faster. Huh. It's a little depressing at times.
Yeah, exactly.
Scott, thank you, man. What's next for you over the next few months as people follow along with you on social media? What should they see popping up? What's going on for
So I've been living in France, which is where my team's based at the moment. Well, yeah, that I'm on. And now I'm in Girona staying with some friends for the winter.
Cool.
And I'll have a team training camp here mid-January.
Okay.
And then late January, early February, I'll head back up to France to start the season. So yeah, I'll just be here putting in, really just the base over the winter, a little bit of gym, and also, enjoying catching up with some mates, because the place I live in France, there's not a whole lot of, the population actually isn't that big. It's a nice place, but there's not a lot going on. So it's,
where is that?
Bourg-en-Bresse. So it's like pretty much smack bang in the center of France, just north of Lyon.
Okay. Oh, my sister lived in Lyon. Small world.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Scott, thank you, man. We're so appreciative of you taking the time to share your knowledge. It's going to be great when it posts, and hopefully we get to see you step on the podium, first spot next year at some big races, and we'll definitely be rooting for you.
Thanks a lot, Brennan. Yeah, pleasure to be on the podcast, and fingers crossed.
All right, mate. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Beauty. Cheers. Sounds good. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Gotcha. Cheers, mate.